Hello, welcome to the Construction Show by Crownsman. Our first guest at CONEXPO is going to be Subsite. Cory Maker is going to be joining us from Subsite. Cory, welcome to the show.
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay, so a lot of times I go into sort of company summary, but I'm going to do it a little different on this one because I want, if people only have a few minutes to watch, I want them to understand something we were talking about off camera that was quite interesting. It's new regulations that are coming up, which of course tie into the product. So can you talk a little bit about, well, let's give actually that first snapshot of what Subsite is offering and then jump into that regulations.
Yeah, so, Subsite basically stands for know what's below. So everything we do in the underground utility infrastructure, right? And it makes up the electronics piece of our business. And the big thing with that, when we start looking at the ever-changing regulations, new technologies that are emerging, but obviously the amount of infrastructure in the ground is changing how we're having to do things.
Yeah.
And those guidelines like Senate Bill 865 in California are starting to drive regulations for mapping and of that infrastructure current.
Right.
And the new as-built.
So what would be an example of a regulation that would be coming in place?
So the Senate Bill 865, that guideline actually lays out the mapping of the utilities of whatever new installations being
lays out or like mandates?
So it mandates.
Okay.
So there are guidelines that are put in place that whenever you go out and put a new product in the ground, there's a regulation that says that you have to have GIS mapping that goes along with it.
Right.
And in the past, a lot of that was just handwritten reports, right? When guys would go out and do a drill shot, they would turn in that they were at 10 foot the whole way, but you didn't have anything regulating that information.
And is this within like a major city?
Yeah.
Even?
And this is anywhere out in California. So whenever they pass this is one of those things that they saw the driving force behind the number of utility strikes, things like that, because the maps that were being generated off of the handwritten things weren't accurate. There was no way to actually regulate what's being turned in.
When you say utility strike, you mean a literal strike?
Yeah, where they're hitting, it could be fiber optic, could be water, sewer, gas.
So then I guess, it's one of these silly assumptions that you make. I would assume that everything has been mapped out over years, but it's really not then.
Well, and there are a lot of cases where there are maps. The level of accuracy is what's in question.
Oh, I see.
And, we've seen major water lines that are struck on a side of road where the map that was provided by a municipality said it was on the other side of the road.
Really? Yeah.
So that's where the level of accuracy, the technology plays into that and takes some of the human error out.
So are they mandating to remap out some of this, or is it just if there's a new?
So in the process of doing some of that, that's where they're going and talking about, and this is part of like the CGA trade show. And that's kind of what's driving it is, their mentality is how do we get to zero damages?
Right.
And it is that global map. Because, there's millions of locates being done every year where 811's being called out to go do those locates prior to the work being done. But there's still a lot of the unlocatables, things that don't have tracer wires, things like that they may not see. And if they don't do the best practices of using a vacuum excavation unit to pothole down to them, they don't know that they're there.
Let's talk about our heavy industry tour brought to you by Savannah Equipment, supplying mining equipment worldwide. We are heading to events across North America, Africa, and Australia, and filming episodes on location. Email us at info@crownsman.com to be part of our Crownsman's Heavy Industry World Tour. Dayquip specializes in the design and manufacturing of attachments for all makes and models of compact excavators, wheel loaders, crawl dozers, and articulated dump trucks. You can choose from any of their engineered attachments, or they can design and build to your specifications. All of their products can be shipped anywhere in North America, hassle-free. If you don't see it, just ask and they will build it. Check out their website, www.dayquip.com, or email them info@dayquip.com for sales, quotes, and support. DMH manufactures CNC lathes for seal production, semi-finished materials for seal manufacturing, as well as machine seals. But they are much more than a seal manufacturer. They supply the technology for seal manufacturing in the form of machines, seal software, and tooling technology. Altogether, this allows the simple manufacturing of nearly every seal within the shortest amount of time. The products are also used in a wide range of industries such as mobile hydraulics, mining industry, heavy industry machinery, oil and gas, wind energy, renewable energy, aviation, food and pharmaceutical industry, transportation, and automotive industry. To learn more, you can visit them at dmh.at. Seal technologies of the future, already today.
Has it been expedited by things like, like fiber? I mean, around our office, they're tearing up the whole street doing it.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we see driving this, because obviously directional drilling is much less invasive. So we'd shut down a very small section of like a street intersection or something, or do a road crossing without having to shut the road down. So that's what's helped driving a lot of that. But we did see a huge emphasis put on basically the directional drilling market, and actually had cities ban it because of the number of strikes.
Right.
And that goes back to, having that digital map of what all is below.
So what's the way forward? What is Subsite offering the market now?
So today, like, it's kind of a full product suite of the things that they need to basically do that new installation of whether that's open cut or even the trenchless methods. So at Subsite, we develop our own HDE guidance systems for the directional drills. Well, in the development of that years ago, we started doing rod by rod bore planners. So not only can they go out there and get the locate information, but beforehand with the utility locator, they're able to link that data to the HDE tracker system and be able to see those utilities that are out in front of them.
What's the utility locator?
So the Utility Guard 2 is a utility locator. It's a multi-frequency locator that they hook up to the lines, and they're able to go out and basically locate them.
So this is above ground?
Yes.
Yeah. And they're monitoring what? And so how deep would that go?
I mean, it depends on the ground soil conditions. They have multiple different frequencies depending on the passive or active interference. So they'll go out there and figure out what's like best case scenario. And that's where a lot of what's happened in the industry, because like I said, there's millions of locates going on every year. So if you've heard of 811, before you dig, so you call 811, they come out and do the locates. They'll go out and mark the ground, whether it's water, sewer, or gas, by color of paint. So when the directional drill gets out there, they're able to see that. They know that's where they need to pothole down to and ensure they cross that utility without hitting it.
So is that, I mean, in a place, I mean, imagine in California, some of these like major hubs, it would just be, I can't even imagine what's underneath the ground.
Absolutely.
And so when you're going into there or someone's going in there with your units, that's, in some cases, they're going in blind without it.
And yes, and that's kind of what we've seen. I mean, the fiber industry was booming to the point where the locates weren't getting done in time. The guys weren't waiting to get those done, and they would go out there and start trying to work.
Right, yeah.
And that's where a lot of these best practices that NASTT, CGA, and those guys have put together for directional drilling has helped set those guidelines for those people to follow.
So how do you get the adoption of from this conversation, because we're talking about it in a very focused area, but of course, if you're looking at municipality and contractors, there's a lot of moving parts. How do you get that adoption, or people coming to you now?
So as an OEM, we work a lot with other people in the industry, even our competitors. We work with them to write white papers to help justify and show what those best practices truly are.
Right.
Because it is the only time you hear about directional drilling is when something bad has happened.
Yeah. It's one of those things, isn't it? Yeah.
But I mean, there's millions and millions of feet of fiber being put in right now. And, the dirt report that CGA puts together and puts out, they track the number of major strikes that happen in a year. Well, it looks like a lot when you see 250,000 strikes, right? And it seems like a high number, but that's not accounting for the millions and millions of utilities that are being underground a year.
Yeah, well, that's the same thing with like the trains. Like obviously that's getting a lot of coverage, and for good reason, but it's getting a lot of coverage. And then if you look up how many train derailments or like problems happen in a year, it's literally in the thousands.
Absolutely.
I want to highlight a couple actual units. Just the audience is here, and I want to make sure we highlight them. So you've got two products. Correct me if I'm wrong. You got the Marksman and the Marksman Plus.
Yep.
So can you kind of walk us through, first give us a setup. What before we started the interview, you kind of sort of set me up to understand how it actually like physically works.
Yep.
Can you do that walkthrough and then talk about those product lines specifically?
Yeah, so the Marksman is our HDE guidance system that pairs with the directional drills that we provide at Ditch Witch. And essentially what that is a beacon and a housing. So when the drill stem is underneath the ground and they're using a walkover method to basically go out and locate. So they're getting roll and pitch, that they're able to use that information to make their steering corrections. But they're also getting depth of where they're at. Because a lot of times, a bid spec will have a requirement that you need to be at 10 feet the whole way.
Right. So I actually have the unit. I have one of them, and you're operating a drill.
Yep.
Now, what do you see? Are you getting a screen back in your machine? What are you getting?
So on the Marksman itself, you have your own display that you're looking at, but the directional drill also has an integrated display, a 7-inch display that's giving them that same feedback.
Oh, okay. So I'm feeding it live to you, essentially. And then what about the Plus? What's sort of the difference?
So the Marksman base is like a model that is developed mainly for the fiber market. So it's in areas where you're doing short shots. It auto connects for the connection to the beacon. So when you're doing calibration, things like that, it's much faster.
Okay.
Because the guys in fiber job sites are doing a 400-foot shot, moving to the next place, doing a 400-foot shot.
Yeah.
It's much more simplicated. It has 6 frequencies. The Plus has way more built into it for the aspect of the larger drill rigs, the technology they need for that, up to 36 frequencies. and 2 different power levels. So it allows them to go deeper depths. So they have 2 different power levels on that beacon. And the other thing with it too, it has a bore path analyzer. So this is developed to take some of that human error out of it. So when I talk about passive or active interference, like what could be a chain link fence could cause interference with that signal coming out of the beacon.
Right.
So it has a bore path analyzer. They're able to walk that bore path and it'll tell them what frequencies to use.
Right. Is that, what was I going to ask actually? I went to ask something and then sometimes I have 2 different thoughts at the same time. So is the drill operator, is there an autonomous side to the data they're getting?
So the data they're getting from the Marksman, it depends on what they're using, what basically user interface at that point. Because we have a drill 2 too. It's called drill 2 is the method. So the locator is actually able to go out 30 foot out in front of the drill and they basically can set it there.
Yeah.
And the guy on the drill, if he's the higher educated person on the job site, he can actually drill to it without having to receive the feedback from a person running the tracker.
Oh, I see.
And
okay.
a lot of that was developed because the workforce for this industry isn't growing with the fiber.
Well, yeah, we're I mean, in the U.S. and Canada, we're seeing it like this. I mean, skilled labor shortage. You hear it. I mean, at nauseum. So, but I guess you're running into that too. So this, can you actually walk through that again? So the operator could set it out 30 feet above, and how much ground is it covering though?
So in most cases, a lot of our equipment have 10-foot drill rods all the way up to 20-foot drill rods.
Right. Okay.
So a lot of times you'll try to get to like a 10, 20, 30 foot, whatever that range is. And depending on the noise floor is how distant you can get from it.
Right.
So if you're in a frequency that's loud, you can actually go much further than that. But a lot of guys generally average around 30 foot out in front of it, and then they know where they're going to be because it's doing that calculation of roll and pitch to tell you if you stay on path, you're going to be at this depth and this point whenever you get here.
You mentioned competitors. Are you like that working with competitors? So are you giving these units, are competitors, can it be integrated with other
It can be
operators?
integrated with other equipment, yes.
Oh, okay.
So like the HE guidance systems will be able to use with any directional drill.
Okay. So is that, in that space, is there any other, I'm not an expert in this field. So for me, it seems like you shouldn't be allowed to drill without it.
Well, and no, you shouldn't. And there are other competitors.
Yeah. But are you allowed to drill now or that part of the regulation that you can't drill without this type of equipment in place?
Right. Well, there's other applications like in the pipeline where they use wireline, that type of technology.
Okay.
That is sending a signal back through a wire through the drill pipe.
Right.
But it's generally done for like river crossings, large projects, maxi rig type work.
Based in Southern California, Enhanced Scanning has performed thousands of projects on construction sites across the U.S. in an effort to help its customers find the unfindable. Enhanced Scanning combines ground-penetrating radar, laser scanning, and drone inspection services to provide comprehensive deliverables for their customers' fast-paced timelines, all without sacrificing quality or communication. To learn more, you can visit them at enhancedscanning.com or find them on LinkedIn at Enhanced Scanning. Fender Dunlop Usflex belts are engineered to withstand the harshest applications, delivering benefits that solve customer problems via superior rip, tear, and impact resistance. Usflex are extremely strong and robust belts that are difficult to destroy, which is important for heavy-duty bulk material handling environments. Made in their very own North American manufacturing facilities, this revolutionary concept in straight warp conveyor belting is up to 3 times more impact resistant versus competitor belting. Usflex users use fewer belts per year, make fewer belt repairs and replacements, reduce or eliminate belt downtime, and improve employee safety. You can visit FenderDunlopAmericas.com to learn more about their premium Usflex conveyor belting. Zeronox is the global leader in electric powertrain solutions, microgrids, and clean technology. They provide a platform for clean energy technology to come to market through powertrain solutions, development partnerships, and electrification kit solutions for conversions, all powered by Zeronox. Their mission is to empower communities through sustainable innovation as they partner with some of the world's leading OEMs to solve challenges across multiple continents with cleaner and higher performing technology. Empowering a clean, innovative, and higher performing future without compromise. Learn more at zeronox.com.
I want to kind of make this as a real world example as possible. Do you have any even recent customers or ongoing projects you sort of can highlight, but also not just highlight, but kind of walk us through sort of adoption, carrying out the program, upgrading equipment, all that type of stuff?
Yeah, so obviously innovation's played a huge role into this. I mean, information going to the cloud. One of the case studies that we had just recently done was with Utilisource. They're 2 different companies, but Cylinder Construction was the startup of this company. And they saw these guidelines, regulations coming that were driving this. So they developed their own utility locating company called Utilisource. And what Utilisource is doing is they're going out and doing all of their own locates before the Sellenrick construction crew comes in to do the HDD work. And what they're doing is they started generating maps based off of this. So they started basically from the format of utility locating, but then started developing as they were doing the work, they were building the as-built in there too. And there was multiple different use cases for them as well, because as a contractor, having something in digital form allowed them to get paid quicker on those job sites.
Right.
So
yeah.
that was a huge benefit.
People can
to
actually
them.
see it.
But then from the safety aspect, they were able to go in and start generating these maps for small cities, municipalities, and those municipalities saw the value in it because now they have that map. They have that digital view of everything that's in the ground.
Okay, so this is kind of a key thing for me. I mean, I've got a bit of a sales background in that in business development, so it's a different technology, but it's sort of the same principle. Are you laying all this out as a value add to them, or are they taking on the technology and then they're letting you know, hey, guess what else we're using it for?
So it was kind of a joint venture with them. So we started talking this through. And like I said, I mean, we started developing some of this technology before there were guidelines and regulations, and it wasn't adopted because there wasn't anything driving it. And that's something that we see in all of this underground industry is if something's not a requirement, they're not going to do it. And that's where the best practices and those things came in, just to ensure that those things are being done correctly.
You know, and that's a tough thing with regulations is because, I think sometimes people see the kind of the back and forth between regulation and non-regulation as if it's a negative thing. It's actually an argument that should always be happening.
Yep.
Do you look at this? I mean, I'm sure all of us have a list of regulations we think should not be in place. In this case, it's hard to see how this isn't a good thing.
No, and I think people see that. I mean, they're buying into it. I mean, we're seeing more and more cities looking at these guidelines that are being set out by other states and seeing that level of adoption grow at a faster rate.
So going back to Utilisource then, the adoption of this, is this, I mean, I would imagine in their business, they're already pretty capable.
Yep.
So is it a day adoption? Is it an hour? I mean, if they have multiple operators, what would be the rollout for that?
It is pretty high level as far as adoption when you start looking at it. Because it does take some manpower, but it pays dividends in the end. And I think that's where they're able to see that. And Steve Sellenrick, the president of Sellenrick Construction, is actually on the board of CGA. So CGA is the Common Ground Alliance that's kind of helped drive this whole mapping process. And they've done multiple different use case presentations at that trade show and talk through basically the kind of the features and benefits of what they're doing. And a lot of those guys, you know, as a contractor, they see that getting paid quicker is a much better deal as far as turnaround. But they're also seeing what they're able to do with this. So think, for instance, where they're putting in fiber today, they may be putting power in 2 weeks later, right?
Right, yeah.
But they're also able to leverage the data, not only from the rigs, so like telematics information that's coming in. They can look at that type of information. They're able to look at this job took us this long, and they're getting much more accurate on their bids as well.
So when you say if it's fairly complex to onboard, I mean, obviously, you know, it's like we're running cameras here. You can't just have someone show up and doesn't know how to run them. What is the, I guess, simple question is why? Why is it, what is the training required?
It's more or less like once you get the information from all of the equipment on that job site, right? So you may have the utility locate information, the pothole location, stuff that you did whenever you're actually doing the work, the bore logs that came off from the work done.
Right.
It's having that data solution.
So it's the integration of everything that put it together.
And then having somebody build it. And a lot of people, I mean, there's platforms out there like Esri and things like that are there readily available. Google Maps. A lot of people use that to overlay their information.
Right.
But that's, I mean, multiple little things like that. But it's just the overall adoption of it. That's the initial startup.
So but once you have it though,
Yep.
then do you sort of have it or is it always evolving?
Yeah, no, and that's something that we try to leverage, that we started building applications that go along with the equipment. So like the iPhone apps, the Android apps that take a lot of that out. That they're able to actually just take that information, Bluetooth to the device and get that information.
Yeah, not that sort of that lag. And what is your role? Well, usually I asked it at the beginning, but we got into a few other things. So
I'm the manager of product management at Subsite. So we cover HD guidance, utility locating, the utility inspection equipment, the camera technology that goes and does pre and post inspections, machine controls for all the Ditch Witch components, and Orange Intel telematics.
So with this, is this sort of the hockey curve happening? The hockey stick curve happening
Absolutely.
with it? Yeah.
And we've seen similar things in the industry, whether it's emission related things, silica regulations on the dust side. It's just another one of those things, and it's very electronic technology driven.
Would this be 10% of where it's going to get to? What are we going to see I mean, obviously we don't have a crystal ball, but 10 years from now?
Yeah, 10 years from now, the overall goal from the industry is to be there at that point. And again, I mean, there's infrastructure like you talked about earlier, like California, the Northeast, and there's so much of the stuff in the Northeast that's being rehabbed. The amount of work that needs to be done, I mean, is tremendous. But like I said, millions of locates, that database is going to start growing extremely quickly.
And is it... What do you see your role? What is Subsite's role in that?
So it's providing that suite of products that allows them to have a turnkey solution on a job site, and it's one of those mottos that we have, and that's how we've kind of modeled our business. Everything underground is own the job site. So we're providing a turnkey solution, not only the installation, the digital solutions aspect of it, but even all the way down to the rehab with our Hammerhead product line.
Right. And you didn't go with a proprietary approach. Right. You actually went so that other people can adopt it as well.
Because that's one of those things. Anything you're driving like that's better for the market. I mean, you have to go out there and make it something readily available for everybody to ensure that it is getting done. Yeah,
it's exciting, and it's a great first. We're gonna have Ditch Witch on, and this first one with Subsites. It's a great first episode, I think, for CONEXPO. So thank you very much, sir.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, everybody, for watching. We've got plenty more episodes coming. Gowdy hates when I say what is the first episode and the second. But anyway, sorry about that. Keep watching the show. Please subscribe, share, and thank you for watching The Construction Show.